All right. Ready to go deep on something pretty interesting today.
Always.
We're going to do a deep dive into St. Michael the Archangel.
Okay.
You sent over some really interesting sources.
Yeah.
One was a transcript from a Catholic priest's YouTube video.
Right.
And the other one was some information on what they call the sacred line of monasteries.
That's fascinating stuff.
So we're going to try to unpack Michael's role in Scripture, his connection to these kind of mysterious mountains, and even some stories that might make you look at that statue of his a little differently.
It's amazing how Michael's story really kind of weaves together Jewish and Christian tradition over centuries. He's depicted as this powerful warrior, an intercessor, a protector, but his role has evolved, from guarding the body of Moses to potentially battling Satan.
To understand that evolution, I think we need to start with the basics.
Right.
Like, what exactly are angels?
Well, the sources you sent describe angels as pure spirits. They have an intellect and will, but no physical bodies, unlike humans.
Okay.
Now, they're higher than humans by nature, but lower by grace.
I'm going to need you to unpack that one a little bit.
Think of it this way. Angels were created perfect from the beginning.
Yeah.
Humans, on the other hand, entered the picture a little later and were, shall we say, affected by original sin.
Right.
However, through grace,
Okay.
Events like the Immaculate Conception, the Incarnation, humanity was elevated above the angels.
So in a way, humans have the potential to surpass angels through grace.
That's right.
So where does St. Michael fit into this whole hierarchy of angels?
Yeah.
Is he at the top?
Well, Michael is considered an archangel.
Okay.
One of the highest ranking angels. There are 9 choirs of angels,
Right.
each with different duties assigned by God. And the archangels, like Michael, are entrusted with delivering messages of supreme importance to humanity.
Okay, so now I got to ask. Yeah.
How does a being like Michael, who is a pure spirit, earn the title of saint?
That's a really good question. In the early church, there wasn't a formal canonization process like we have today.
Right.
Christians just started honoring individuals they considered holy, both human and angelic, by calling them saints. While the formal process later focused primarily on humans, the title remained for Michael, based on the church's long-standing recognition of his holiness.
It's kind of an honorary title?
Yes.
Based on his role and his impact throughout history.
That's right. And when you look at Scripture, Michael has had quite an impact. He's mentioned several times, battling Satan in Revelation, protecting the Israelites in Daniel, and even struggling with Satan for the body of Moses.
Yeah, and that story about Moses' body. Not as well known, but it really highlights this kind of protective role that Michael seems to embody.
It does.
Yeah.
You can't talk about Michael without talking about the St. Michael prayer.
Of course.
And this whole vision that Pope Leo XIII had. So tell us more about that.
So in 1884, after celebrating Mass, Pope Leo XIII reportedly overheard a conversation between God and Satan. Satan was boasting that he could destroy the church.
Now, some sources I looked at suggested that maybe this vision was more political strategy than divine revelation.
Sure.
Could it have been a way to kind of solidify the church's authority?
It's an interesting perspective, and it adds another layer to the story.
Right.
Whatever the vision's origins were, it had a profound impact on Pope Leo XIII. He went straight to his study and wrote the St. Michael prayer.
Wow.
And ordered it distributed to every bishop in the world with instructions to recite it after every Mass.
And that practice really faded after Vatican II.
There has.
But there's been a resurgence in recent years, even by Pope Francis. Do you think there's a connection between this renewed interest and kind of the state of the world today?
I think it's possible. The St. Michael prayer, with its focus on battling evil, seems to resonate with people who are facing uncertainty and fear.
Right.
And speaking of Michael's presence in the world, you want to discuss the sword of St. Michael.
I do. And it's not just the weapon that he's often depicted with.
Right.
There's a much deeper meaning. Tell me more about this line of monasteries dedicated to him.
You're right. It's far more than just a weapon.
Yeah.
The sword of St. Michael refers to a line of 7 monasteries stretching across Europe from Ireland to Israel. And what's really amazing is each monastery was built independently.
Wow.
Seemingly without knowledge of the others.
Yeah.
Yet they form a perfect straight line.
Wow.
Aligned with the summer solstice.
That's incredible. A perfect line across a continent, all dedicated to St. Michael. What are the chances of that?
I know, right?
Yeah.
And that's why some people believe this alignment isn't just coincidence.
Yeah.
But a sign of divine intervention. Yeah. It gets even more interesting when you realize
what's that?
That these sites were originally pagan.
Okay.
Dedicated to the god Apollo before they were Christianized.
So it's almost like the church reclaimed these sacred sites.
Yeah.
What's the significance of the summer solstice?
That's a great question. The summer solstice has long been associated with light, power, and the triumph of good over darkness.
Right.
So maybe the alignment of these monasteries was meant to emphasize Michael's role as a warrior of light.
It's fascinating that this line of monasteries is almost like a physical representation of this cosmic battle.
It is.
Now, speaking of these monasteries, one of them is particularly famous.
It is.
Mont Saint-Michel in France. What makes it so special?
Mont Saint-Michel is extraordinary for its location and history. It's located on a tidal island off the coast of France, a place that was once believed to be a passageway to the afterlife. Wow. Legends even suggest that it's where Michael cast Satan down to earth.
It's like stepping into some kind of mythical landscape.
It is.
You mentioned legends about a passageway to the afterlife. What else can you tell us about the beliefs surrounding Mont Saint-Michel?
Well, for centuries, people believed that souls departing from this life would traverse the treacherous bay surrounding Mont Saint-Michel to reach the other side. Pilgrims would travel there seeking spiritual guidance, believing it was a place where the veil between worlds was thin.
It's amazing how places like that can hold such powerful symbolism and influence people's beliefs for generations. It really underscores the power of these stories and figures.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about Michael's presence in Scripture, in historical events, and in these sacred locations, but what about modern-day encounters?
Sure.
There's a really fascinating account from the Korean War that raises some intriguing questions about Michael's intervention in human affairs.
You're talking about the story of Marie Michael.
I am. It's a chilling story.
Yeah.
Can you remind me of the details again?
Of course. So the account describes a fierce battle during the Korean War.
Right.
Marie Michael, pinned down by enemy fire, wounded, finds himself alone on the battlefield.
Right.
And he describes a mysterious figure approaching him, also named Michael.
And this mysterious Michael displays some seemingly superhuman abilities.
That's right.
Yeah.
According to the Maria's letter, this figure wasn't breathing in freezing temperatures.
Wow.
Bullets seemed to have no effect on him.
Wow.
And enemy soldiers were killed by what appeared to be sword strikes.
That's incredible.
As the Marine drifted in and out of consciousness, he described this Michael growing larger with wings and a sword standing over him.
Wow.
When his unit finally found him,
yeah,
they confirmed that he'd been alone the entire time. Mm-hmm. His gun hadn't been fired.
Yeah.
And yet 7 enemy soldiers lay dead with sword wounds.
That's a story that's both inspiring and a little bit terrifying.
Yep.
While some might dismiss it as a hallucination or wartime exaggeration, those who documented it, including the chaplain, seemed convinced of its authenticity.
Right.
Could it be that St. Michael really did intervene in that battle?
The account definitely leaves that possibility open.
Yeah.
It adds another layer of intrigue to the whole debate about angelic intervention.
Right. It's fascinating how this figure, whose story originated centuries ago, continues to appear in modern times.
It is.
Speaking of modern times, there's also a significant connection between St. Michael and Ukraine, right?
Absolutely. St. Michael is the patron saint of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine.
Right.
His image is on the city's coat of arms, symbolizing his role as protector. It's believed that he and the heavenly host are currently fighting for Ukraine.
I remember reading that his image was removed from the coat of arms during Soviet rule.
That's right.
But restored after the USSR collapsed.
Yeah.
It seems like a powerful symbol of resilience and faith.
Absolutely.
But with all this focus on Michael as a warrior, how do theologians reconcile that with his place within the angelic hierarchy?
Sure.
Is he really that powerful, or is there something else to it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Some theologians argue that while Michael is a powerful archangel, he's not necessarily in the highest tier of angels.
Okay.
They point to the fact that he's often depicted defeating Satan, not through brute force, but through God's grace.
So it's not his own strength.
Exactly.
But rather God's power working through him.
That's right.
But other theologians propose a different idea.
Yep.
They suggest that there are two types of archangels.
Okay.
Lowercase a archangels, belonging to the traditional hierarchy, and then capital A archangels, a higher, more powerful order.
Right.
They believe Michael belongs to this elite group, a captain of the heavenly host. So no definitive answer, but both interpretations point to the power of God, but offer different perspectives on Michael's ranking within the angelic hierarchy.
Right. And ultimately, the specific details of angelic hierarchy might be less important than understanding the core message of Michael's story.
Which is?
The constant battle against evil, the importance of relying on God's grace, and the hope for ultimate victory.
That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in the specifics, but the big picture is what matters.
Absolutely.
But if this battle against evil is so constant, why don't we hear more about it? It feels like a hidden conflict, a secret war.
You know, that's a really insightful observation.
Thanks. Maybe it's because the spiritual realm is often overshadowed by the material world. We tend to focus on what we can see and touch. We neglect the unseen forces that shape our lives.
But the sources you shared suggest that the spiritual battle is very real.
It is.
And that we're all participants in it.
That's right.
Whether we realize it or not.
Whether we realize it or not.
So it's up to us to kind of rediscover this ancient wisdom and apply it to our modern lives.
Exactly. And those sources offer some valuable guidance on how to do that. They emphasize the importance of aligning ourselves with God's grace through prayer, the sacraments, and living virtuous lives.
So it's like we have this secret weapon, this spiritual army ready to assist us.
It is.
If we just ask for their help.
Absolutely.
But do we have to be perfect?
No, not at all.
Because none of us are saints.
The sources don't suggest perfection is a prerequisite.
Remember, Marine Michael, he wasn't perfect. But he prayed for protection and survived against all odds.
That's encouraging. It's not about being flawless, but having faith.
Yes.
But if we're relying on Michael and the angels to fight our battles, doesn't that make us passive?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
It highlights the balance between reliance on divine help and personal responsibility.
Yeah.
The sources don't promote passivity. They say that we're co-creators with God in this spiritual battle.
So it's a collaborative effort.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have free will. We make choices that either align us with good or invite evil. Think of it as a partnership. We do our part by striving for virtue, resisting temptation, and seeking God's guidance. And Michael and the heavenly host provide the support we need to overcome obstacles and make righteous choices.
It's like we're training alongside Michael, learning from his example, and becoming spiritual warriors ourselves.
Exactly.
But if this is a partnership and we have a role to play, what are our tools?
According to the sources, our most potent weapons are prayer, the sacraments, especially frequent confession, and living a virtuous life. These strengthen our connection to God, weaken the influence of evil, and allow Michael and the heavenly host to assist us more effectively.
It's like we're fortifying our defenses.
That's right.
But how do we even know if these angels are real?
That's a fair question.
It seems so supernatural.
It's true that the angelic realm is beyond our physical senses. However, the sources you sent, rooted in both Jewish and Christian traditions, offer compelling evidence for their existence. From biblical accounts to historical testimonies and even those modern-day encounters we discussed. The evidence, while not scientifically verifiable, is consistent and widespread.
So it comes down to faith.
It does.
Interpreting these accounts through a lens of belief. And acknowledging the limitations of our current scientific understanding.
Absolutely.
And speaking of belief, these sources suggest that Michael plays a big role in the end times.
That's right.
I know that's a topic that causes a lot of debate.
It does.
The idea of a final battle between good and evil is a recurring theme in many religious traditions.
It is.
The book of Daniel describes Michael as the protector of God's people during a period of great tribulation, ultimately leading to the resurrection of the dead.
That's right.
So maybe the doomsday preppers aren't entirely off base with their worries about the end of the world.
Right.
But if the end times have been prophesied for centuries,
I know.
How do we know when it's really happening?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources don't offer a specific timeline or any criteria for identifying that moment.
Right.
However, they emphasize the importance of vigilance and spiritual preparedness.
Okay.
They suggest that Michael's role as protector and warrior becomes even more critical as we approach the culmination of this cosmic battle.
So it's less about pinpointing a date and more about being spiritually ready regardless of when it happens. And maybe this resurgence of interest in St. Michael suggests that we're entering a period where his protection and intercession are even more vital.
That's certainly possible.
It's almost like people are sensing a shift, a growing darkness, and turning to Michael for strength and guidance.
And it speaks to the power of figures like Michael.
Yeah.
They represent those deep-seated human longings for protection, guidance, and victory over the forces that threaten us.
So how can we apply all this knowledge to our own lives? Beyond just reciting the St. Michael prayer. How can we get involved in this spiritual battle and enlist the help of the heavenly hosts?
Well, I think the key takeaway is recognizing that we're all engaged in this spiritual battle. Whether we're aware of it or not. The sources suggest that by aligning ourselves with God's grace through prayer, the sacraments, and living virtuous lives, we can tap into the support of the heavenly host with Michael as our champion.
That's powerful. It's like we have this incredible support system, this spiritual army ready to assist us.
Absolutely.
It's a comforting thought knowing that we're not alone in this fight.
It is.
But if we're not battling with physical weapons, how do we actively participate in this spiritual warfare? What are our tools?
Well, as we touched on earlier, prayer is a really powerful tool for connecting with the angelic realm. Particularly the St. Michael prayer. The sources emphasize that even for powerful beings like Michael, our prayers matter. They act as a form of invitation.
Interesting.
A way of aligning our will with God's will and opening ourselves to their assistance.
So it's not just about asking for protection. It's about actively participating through prayer.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging our need for help, expressing our desire for good to prevail, and inviting these spiritual allies to join us in the fight.
But it's not just about the words we say.
That's right.
It's also about creating an environment in our lives that's conducive to their presence.
Exactly.
What do you mean by creating an environment?
Well, think of it this way. If you were an angel, would you rather spend time in a place filled with negativity, chaos, conflict, or a place filled with love, peace, harmony?
Yeah, I get it.
So, by cultivating virtue in our lives, by practicing forgiveness, compassion, kindness, we create a space where angels can more easily dwell and assist us.
So it's a two-way street. We cultivate virtue, and they in turn work more effectively in our lives.
Exactly. It's about aligning our energies with theirs. Creating a resonance that allows for a more powerful flow of divine grace. The sources suggest that angels are naturally drawn to those who are striving to live in accordance with God's will. Those who are trying to embody goodness.
Makes you think about the choices we make every day.
It does.
The thoughts we entertain, the words we speak,
yes,
the actions we take.
Absolutely. Every act of kindness, every resistance to temptation, every effort to choose love over fear creates a ripple effect in the spiritual realm.
Wow.
It strengthens the forces of good and weakens the grip of evil.
It's almost like we're soldiers in this cosmic army. And our weapons are compassion, forgiveness, and love.
That's beautiful.
And with Michael leading the charge, it makes it a little less daunting. It's definitely a game changer. But if this battle is so important, why don't we hear more about it? Seems like such a hidden conflict.
It's a question many have asked. Maybe it's because the spiritual realm is overshadowed by the material world.
Right.
We tend to focus on what we can see and touch.
Yeah.
We neglect the unseen forces that shape our lives.
Or maybe acknowledging the reality of this spiritual battle requires faith.
Yeah.
A willingness to believe in something beyond what we can see.
Exactly.
In a world that often prioritizes logic and reason, it can be hard to embrace the idea of spiritual warfare.
It can.
But the sources you share paint such a compelling picture of this conflict.
Yeah.
And they offer hope.
Yes.
That despite the challenges, good ultimately triumphs.
That's the key takeaway, right?
Yeah.
Despite the darkness, the chaos, there is a force of good at work in the universe.
Right.
And we have the power to align ourselves with it.
Right.
To become instruments of peace, love, and healing.
This entire deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
Good.
A call to awaken to the spiritual reality that surrounds us and to embrace our role as active participants.
Exactly. And perhaps that's Michael's message to you and to all of us, that we are not alone, that we have access to divine assistance, and that ultimately love will conquer all.
On that note, I think it's time to wrap up this incredible deep dive into the world of St. Michael, the Archangel.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm leaving this conversation feeling inspired.
I'm glad to hear that.
And more aware of the unseen forces at work in the world.
Yeah.
What about you?
Absolutely. And, you know, with a little help from Michael and the Heavenly Host, we can all contribute to making the world a little brighter.
Absolutely.
A little more loving and a little more peaceful.
Couldn't agree more.
It really is,
It really does feel like stepping into a mythical landscape.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned legends about a passageway to the afterlife.
Right.
What else can you tell us about the beliefs surrounding Mont Saint-Michel?
Well, for centuries, people believed that souls departing from this life would have to traverse that bay surrounding Mont Saint-Michel to reach the other side.
Wow.
So pilgrims would travel there seeking spiritual guidance, believing it was a place where the veil between worlds was thin.
It's incredible how places like that can hold such power and symbolism for so long, influencing people's beliefs.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about Michael's presence in Scripture, in historical events, these sacred locations. But what about modern-day encounters?
Sure.
There's a really fascinating account from the Korean War that raises questions about Michael's intervention in human affairs.
You're talking about the story of Marine Michael.
I am. It's chilling.
It is.
Can you remind me of the details?
Absolutely. So this account describes a fierce battle during the Korean War.
Right.
Marine Michael, pinned down by enemy fire, wounded, finds himself alone.
Alone, wow.
And he describes a mysterious figure approaching him, also named Michael.
And this mysterious Michael displays some superhuman abilities, right?
Yeah, according to the Marine's letter, this figure wasn't breathing in freezing temperatures.
Wow.
Bullets had no effect.
Wow.
Enemy soldiers were killed by sword strikes.
Really?
As the Marine drifted in and out of consciousness, he described this. Michael growing larger with wings, a sword standing over him.
It's like something out of a movie.
It is.
So when his unit found him, what did they find?
Well, they confirmed he'd been alone the whole time.
Yeah.
His gun hadn't been fired.
Wow.
And 7 enemy soldiers lay dead with sword wounds.
This is a story that's both inspiring and terrifying.
Right.
Some might dismiss it as a hallucination or a wartime exaggeration.
Sure.
But those who documented it, including the chaplain, seem to be convinced of its authenticity. Is it possible that St. Michael intervened?
It's possible.
Yeah.
The account definitely leaves that possibility open.
Yeah. It's fascinating how this figure from centuries ago continues to appear in modern times.
Yeah, it is.
Speaking of modern times, there's a connection between St. Michael and Ukraine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
St. Michael is the patron saint of Kiev, the capital of Ukraine.
Right.
His image is on the city's coat of arms, symbolizing his role as protector.
Wow.
And it's believed that he and the heavenly host are currently fighting for Ukraine.
Yeah, you know, I remember reading that his image was removed from the coat of arms.
That's right.
During Soviet rule, but it was restored after the USSR collapsed.
It was.
What a powerful symbol of resilience.
Absolutely.
But with all this focus on Michael the warrior, how do theologians reconcile that with his place in the angelic hierarchy?
Right.
Is he really that powerful?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or is there more to the story?
Yeah, some argue that while Michael is powerful, he's not in the highest tier.
Okay.
They point to the fact that he's defeating Satan.
Right.
Not through brute force, but God's grace.
So it's not his own strength. It's God's power working through him.
That's right.
Now, other theologians propose a different idea. They say there are two types of archangels.
Okay.
Lowercase a archangels belonging to the traditional hierarchy.
Okay.
And then capital A archangels, a higher order.
Yeah.
They think Michael's in this elite group.
Interesting.
A captain of the heavenly host.
Yeah.
So no definitive answer.
Oh, really?
But both interpretations point to God's power,
They do.
but offer different views on Michael's ranking.
Right. And ultimately, the specifics of angelic hierarchy might be less important than understanding the core message of Michael's story.
Which is?
This constant battle against evil, relying on God's grace, and hoping for ultimate victory.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in those details.
Yeah.
But if this battle is so constant, why don't we hear more about it?
That is a good question. It feels like a hidden conflict.
Yeah, secret war.
You know, that's insightful.
Thanks.
Maybe it's because the spiritual realm is overshadowed by the material world.
I see.
We focus on what we can see and touch and neglect those unseen forces that shape our lives.
So the sources you shared suggest this spiritual battle is real.
Very real.
And we're all participants.
Yes, whether we realize it or not.
So it's up to us to rediscover this ancient wisdom and apply it to our modern lives.
I think so. And the sources offer guidance on how to do that.
Okay.
They emphasize aligning ourselves with God's grace through prayer, the sacraments, and living virtuously.
So it's like we have this secret weapon, this spiritual army ready to assist us.
That's a great way to put it.
If we simply ask for their help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But do we have to be perfect to get their help?
Yeah, because none of us are saints.
You're right about that. The sources don't say perfection is required.
Okay, good.
Remember Marine Michael?
Yeah.
He wasn't perfect,
right?
But he prayed for protection,
right?
And he survived.
Yeah. Against incredible odds.
Incredible odds.
That's encouraging. It's not about being flawless. It's about having faith.
Yeah.
But if we're relying on Michael and the angels to fight our battles, doesn't that make us passive?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
It highlights the balance between relying on divine help and personal responsibility.
Right.
The sources don't promote passivity.
Okay.
They say we're co-creators with God in this spiritual battle.
So it's a collaborative effort.
Exactly.
Right.
We have free will.
Okay.
We make choices that either align us with good or invite evil.
It's like a partnership.
It is a partnership. We do our part, striving for virtue, resisting temptation, seeking guidance.
Yeah.
And Michael and the heavenly host provide the support to overcome obstacles and make good choices.
It's like we're training alongside Michael, learning from him, becoming spiritual warriors.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. But if this is a partnership and we have a role,
we do.
What are our tools?
Well, according to the sources, our most potent weapons are prayer, the sacraments, especially confession, and living virtuously.
Living a virtuous life.
Right. These things strengthen our connection to God.
Okay.
They weaken evil's influence and allow Michael and the heavenly host to help us.
So it's like we're fortifying our defenses.
Exactly.
But how do we know these angels are even real?
That's fair.
It all seems so supernatural.
It's true that the angelic realm is beyond our senses.
Yeah.
But the sources you sent, rooted in both Jewish and Christian traditions, offer evidence.
What kind of evidence?
Well, from biblical accounts to historical testimonies.
Right.
Even those modern day encounters.
Right.
The evidence, while not scientifically verifiable, is consistent.
Yeah.
And it's widespread.
Okay, so it comes down to faith then.
I think it does.
Yeah. Interpreting these accounts through that lens of belief and acknowledging that science doesn't have all the answers.
That's right.
Now, these sources also suggest that Michael has a big role in the end times.
They do.
I know it's a topic that sparks debate.
It does. The idea of a final battle between good and evil is a recurring theme.
Yeah, in a lot of religions.
It is. The book of Daniel describes Michael as the protector of God's people during a period of tribulation, ultimately leading to the resurrection.
So maybe the doomsday preppers aren't entirely off base.
Maybe not.
With their worries about the end of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
If the end times have been prophesied.
For centuries.
For centuries.
How do we know when it's really happening?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The sources don't give us a timeline or specific criteria to identify that moment.
Yeah.
However, they do emphasize vigilance, spiritual preparedness.
Okay.
They suggest that Michael's role as protector and warrior becomes even more critical as we approach that culmination of this cosmic battle.
So it's less about pinpointing a date and more about being ready, regardless of when it happens.
Regardless of when.
And maybe this resurgence of interest in St. Michael suggests that we're entering a period
it's possible.
Where his protection and intercession are even more vital.
It's possible.
It's almost as if people are sensing a shift, a growing darkness, and instinctively turning to Michael.
Turning to Michael for strength.
For guidance.
And guidance. It speaks to the power of figures like Michael. They represent deep-seated human longings for protection, guidance, and victory over the forces that threaten us.
So how can we apply this knowledge to our own lives? Beyond just reciting the prayer, how can we actively engage in this spiritual battle? How can we enlist the help of the heavenly host?
I think the key takeaway is recognizing that we're all engaged in this battle, whether we're aware of it or not. And the sources suggest that by aligning ourselves with God's grace, through prayer, the sacraments, and living virtuously, we can tap into that support with Michael as our champion.
That's a powerful image. It's like we have this incredible support system, this spiritual army ready to assist us.
Ready to assist.
Yeah, it's really comforting, to think about that, that we're not alone in this. But if we're not using physical weapons, how do we actively participate in this spiritual warfare? What are our tools in this?
Well, as we said earlier, prayer is a powerful tool for connecting with that angelic realm, particularly the St. Michael prayer. The sources emphasize that even for powerful beings like Michael, our prayers really matter.
Interesting.
They're like an invitation, aligning our will with God's will and opening ourselves up to their assistance.
So it's not just about asking for protection. It's about actively participating through prayer.
Actively participating in this struggle.
But it's not just the words. It's also about creating the right environment. What do you mean by that?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
If you were an angel, would you rather hang out in a place full of negativity and chaos? Or a place with love and peace?
I get it.
So by cultivating virtue, practicing forgiveness, compassion, we create a space where angels can be present and assist us.
It's a two-way street.
It is.
We do our part, they do theirs.
Exactly. It's about aligning our energies, creating a resonance for divine grace. Angels are drawn to those who are striving to live according to God's will, those who are trying to be good.
Makes you think about the choices we make.
It does.
The things we say, the things we do.
Every act of kindness. Every time we resist temptation. Every time we choose love over fear. It creates a ripple effect.
Wow.
Strengthening good, weakening evil.
So we're like soldiers in this cosmic army.
We are.
Our weapons are compassion and forgiveness.
That's a great way to put it.
And with Michael leading the charge, it feels a little less daunting.
It does. Having those powerful allies can make all the difference.
Yeah, it's a game changer. But if it's so important, why don't we hear more about it?
I know. It's a question that a lot of people have asked.
Yeah, it seems hidden.
Yeah, maybe the spiritual realm is overshadowed by the material world.
We focus on what we see.
Exactly. We neglect the unseen forces.
No, maybe acknowledging this battle requires faith. A willingness to believe in something beyond what we can see.
Beyond our perception.
Our world prioritizes logic and reason.
It does.
It's hard to embrace this idea.
It can be.
But these sources, they paint such a compelling picture.
They do.
And they offer hope.
They do.
That good ultimately triumphs.
That's the key takeaway.
Yeah.
Despite the darkness.
Yeah, the chaos.
That is good at work, and we can align ourselves with it.
Become instruments of peace and healing.
Exactly.
This whole deep dive has been an eye-opener.
I'm glad.
A call to awaken to this spiritual reality and to embrace our role in it.
And perhaps that's Michael's message to us.
Yeah.
That we're not alone.
Right.
That we have help.
Yeah, divine help.
And that love will conquer all.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up
I agree.
This deep dive on St. Michael the Archangel.
It's been a pleasure.
I feel inspired.
That's wonderful.
And more aware of the unseen forces.
Yeah, those unseen forces.
At work in the world.
I feel that way too.
What about you?
Absolutely. And with the little help from Michael and the Heavenly Host, we can all make the world a little brighter, a little more loving, and a little more peaceful.
Couldn't agree more.